Well, hello everyone. If you haven't met me, I'm Mark Borschelt. I'm on faculty here at UVU, and we all know this fine gentleman. And I very much value the opportunity for reflection at the end of the day, to just take a moment and kind of review, sum up what's going on. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Dr. Young to maybe offer some reflections of what the experience has been for him personally. And then what I thought we would do is break up into some affinity groups. We can do this a couple of different ways. And so you can be thinking about that, and when we do that, you can help me disseminate how we're going to do that. Number one, I thought we could do like elementary ed, secondary ed, higher ed, or we can do, if you have specific things that have come up during the day, if say, you know, I'm really interested in these arts areas and I want to, you know, talk with other people of the same ilk, we can do it that way. So just be thinking about that. In a few minutes, we'll do that, and we'll kind of break up into little groups. And I think what we'll do then is give you some time to talk, reflect, and then come up with some questions or some topic points that you would like to discuss. And then as a group, and with Dr. Young, we can go through all of that to finish up the day. Does that sound good? Okay, all right, please.
So the state of creativity is good. I'm very happy to report. I'm very excited to be here and very excited at the enthusiasm that has been shown by both the panel speakers and the audience and everyone participating. I have, as you can imagine, I go to a lot of these different types of talks and events, and I have not, you know, this is not just because I'm here and I'm going out to dinner later. I have not met a more engaged and really fantastic group of people than here at UVU. So I really appreciate that. Some of the things that I learned today, I'll share with you. The panel discussion, I think, was particularly fascinating and informative to me. And I took down some notes, and there's a place in my brain where names are supposed to go, so please excuse me if I don't refer to names, but there's a deficit there that I haven't been able to circumvent. The first speaker, the professor from the technology department, the education department, Susie, yeah, you can help me, talked about this notion that technology can facilitate creative risk-taking. And I really like that idea that people are putting ideas out there in the world with technology, and through the help of technology, that this blind variation or this risk taking can be facilitated through technology. But on the other side of the coin, that continuous partial attention, CPA, leaves problems for this incubation, this downtime. So this balance between technology as being a facilitator or an inhibitor of creative cognition, I think, is really important. The English professor talked about Shakespeare tickling the brain with this switching of nouns and verbs. I thought that was, she didn't use the term tickling, I don't think, but this notion that switching metaphors and using nouns and verbs and this playfulness with language is really important, and breaking the rules is really important. This A student who is encouraging and learning from her daughter how to break the rules and move forward. The professor of science and genetics talks about how universities are the place to merge art and science. This is where art and science comes together. This is the incubator where arts and sciences come together, sometimes in the same person. And this is something that I've really struggled with. Creativity has existed across all of recorded civilization. Why is that? We're interested in it now, but creativity has existed for as far as we can see across recorded history. Why? What's the purpose of creativity? And his beautiful notion that science adds beauty to our understanding of the world. I just love that. I'm going to steal that and use that moving forward. And then, of course, your notion that the mind embodied is not just a brain, that you have to have a mind that is connected to a body in order to have, you have to have a brain that is connected to a body in order to have a mind. There's all this talk about the singularity and downloading our brains to a computer, and it's kind of silly in the abstract, because the notion that you have to have sensory experiences, you have to have motor experiences, you have to have experiences out in the world in order for your mind to work. So a lot of really interesting ideas. I hope some of them were useful to you, and that it spurred as many creative ideas in you as it did in me. I have lots of ideas to go hunting and searching and thinking about moving forward. So thank you very much for all the ideas that were spurred for me. Thank you.
Excellent. And the thought of where we stand now in the world and how we're going to move forward, I think that truly as you say, the origination of creativity bridges all cultures. I think it's our way out. I think it's going to be the means by which we're going to figure out where we're going to take our world in this next, the rest of this next millennium. And I see so much potential and so much promise in our humanity if we can find that bridge and that length of what we can take through our diversity, through the potentiality that we have, as opposed to the divisiveness and those fears that are just so rampant in our world right now. So if we can find that and use the educational environments to find those passions in our young people especially, and cultivate that, and then find their imagination, their creativity, how that's going to go forward. They're the ones that are going to solve these problems that we've created. And again, I know one of the big things that we talked about in one of the sessions earlier was this, I know you guys are inundated with assessment, you know, and it's like this whole, if it's not assessed, it's not real. I don't know how we get past that. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't think that you can not get past it, particularly in the public school system. You have to do the assessments, and those are part of the process. But I have not heard any creative or quick ideas come out of any of the other venues, and I've been to the NAEA, a big conference of 2,000 educators, where we've had these large conversations, and it almost invariably comes down to, yes, but we have to do these tests. So the tests aren't all day, though, are they? Yeah. So I mean. Yeah. So, I mean, even though the tests are a drag, and the tests are there, and the test will be there in the foreseeable future, carving out that time to, so let's say the tests are a third of the time, or you're working on the test for the third of the time, that knowledge acquisition, but trying to consciously carve out that time to do the structured play, or to do the structured, unstructured activities that allow you to systematically get at that other thing that could induce creativity, I think, is important.
Yes.
I think that teaching should be creative, and that within it should be incorporated into every subject that we teach. It should be creative thinking. We should be doing that. She said that not as creativity as downtime, but science is creative. Art is creative, math is creative. We can do all that, we can have fun. Even testing can be creative. There are different ways to test things.
And using the creative instruction that we have in our class, the things that kids do creatively, to then help enforce those objectives so that when they do the assessment, then they are able to pass it.
And one of the ways I heard it described is that we're also guilty as instructors sometimes of feeling like this is being pushed on me, so therefore I'm having to do it. So even without meaning to, what I'm telling the students is that I hate this, I don't want to do this, I have to do this. And so they figure that out. So if we recognize that this aspect of the assessment has to be done, as you say, how do I make that creative? How do I make it fun? Go, guess what? Now we get to do this little testing again. And won't this be fun? And we're going to do this 4 times a week, and this is the way it's going to work. And this is going to, and how do we make it fun? How do you turn this into something that's a cool activity as opposed to one that's being foisted on us, and that it feels like that is this draining, horrid thing that they can then get past, and that your day is structured from that from your perspective that it is enjoyable.
I want to disabuse you of something that you said that I think is important. You said science is creative, and you would not believe how uncreative some of the scientific process is, and particularly the NIH. We're having some problems with that now, with the lack of creativity in the National Institute of Health and funding that goes in, and how funding is gotten from the National Institutes of Health. So even though you're in the trenches and doing God's work in education, some of the same issues, many of the same issues are being felt by scientists, and the lack of creativity and some of the bureaucratic things that are going on at the National Institutes of Health, I'm sure the universities and the faculty meetings. I mean, everyone has their cross to bear to continue the metaphor. So, trying to minimize the agony associated with some of that bureaucratic silliness that you have to do, and make it as tolerable as possible so that you can carve out some time to be creative, because scientists want to be creative, teachers want to be creative, educators want to be creative, professors want to be creative, so that you can start carving out that space is important.
And it's that idea too that it's not, you can't save time. And we feel like our world right now is working and moving at such a rapid pace. The question is, how are we going to spend the time? And we have to ask that in our own lives. How can we slow things down so that we can still, Howard Gardner says, the terrible thing in education right now is that we have to cover this material. And he said, really, education is about uncovering the material. It's uncovering what the things are so that people, are encouraged and excited about going, oh, what's the mystery and drama here? As opposed to, okay, is there 4 of those? Great. Is it going to be on the test? As opposed to, why is this valuable to me? And if it's not personal, it's not valuable to them. And it's especially important when you start elementary ed up through. When you look in early ed, there still is an emotional content that's going on there. By the time you get into about 3rd, 4th grade, it's like very much more than it's like, okay, now I can't, we're in school now, and we have to be serious. You have to sit up straight and you have to pay attention. And so by the time you're in high school, it's just, all of that caringness, and that, unless you get one of those, kind of wacky teachers who come in, okay, guess what's going to happen today, but then the students want to be entertained. So you have to find where is that happy medium, and it's your classroom, and how do you make it work for you? Yes?
When we talk about assessment in the arts, we have a much more authentic way of doing that, and those assessments can come in a variety of forms. But I think it's important to think in terms of assessment happening as part of the learning process. The assessment is embedded into the lesson, into the learning, rather than a separate entity. And I think in that respect, we then save time, but we also are teaching our students that part of learning is evaluating, looking and reflecting on what it is that we're doing, and what they are doing. So self-assessment comes into that, and assessment of peers, and ultimately the assessments that we need to make. But so that embedding helps, I think, with time, but also teaches us that it's part of life.
Well, and the great thing with the arts too is there's generally speaking a product. That's why I like product. I like project-based learning, so that you have a project that you're working on, there's something that's going to be produced. It's either going to be hung on the walls or in the room or something, and the parents or the other students can come in and see it. So that there's an end goal that has a process that's evolved with it, and that they see, oh, there's an outcome here, and that they start to see a quality with it. Say that oh wow, okay, that I can get better at that, or I'm really interested in that now, and I want to see where that's going to take it. And that's why that the math actually has a point of where I'm going to take this, because if I'm going to do the calculations on how the salinization of the water of this particular pond that's going to support this life or not, I need to run those numbers. I need to know why that's there. And then guess what? We created that life out of this, and we're growing these things now, and that's really nifty, so that there's some end game and a point that's coming along with it. Yes?
I'd like to go back and address the thing about play in the classroom.
Yes.
I'd like to share what I just learned recently and saw enacted in a 5th grade teacher. After he would teach a lesson, or the kids would be engaged in the lesson, he would give them a certain amount of time. He said, okay, now you can talk and share what you learned. And so all during the day, the kids had these 5-minute segments where they could stop and share and talk about the things that they wanted to do. And the class that I observed was totally engaged the whole time because they had these little breaks.
Sure, and I think what Vygotsky said, that social and cognitive development occur simultaneously. And if you don't have that social factor, again, we teach many times the way that we were taught. So therefore, if you were taught to sit in the rows and don't talk to your neighbor, that was a bad thing, rather than going, okay, cool. Now, hey, Rex, what did you think about, that when you have that time that it's built in and they know that it's coming up, that it's built into the culture, and that's a great example. That's an excellent idea. Yeah. Do we want to go up to? Do you guys have some thoughts up there? Christian, did you guys come up with?
Well, I just sort of had the thought that so a lot of a lot of people have money and gaming sort of do, and so I sort of had the thought of you shouldn't necessarily teach kids that it should be an occupation, I guess. Not everyone's going to pursue art as an occupation, and that should be okay,
I like that. So having an art as part of your life, or creativity as part of your life. Let's broaden it out even more, as opposed to a means to an end.
What was your first degree in?
Business, finance.
Okay. And what happened with that? It seemed like it was a good idea.
I hated it. So, but it was very practical. My father wanted me to go into something that was practical and that I could get a job, and I did too, and it made sense, and I didn't. And it just wasn't for me, and there wasn't enough. There weren't enough problems for me to solve creatively in the world that I was in. I could probably, maybe if I went on Wall Street, there would be some interesting and creative problems to create or solve on Wall Street, but I just, it wasn't doing it for me. So having to, this creative urge and being able to apply that to my work was great, but sometimes I go to work and I can't believe that I'm getting paid to do this, to come out and travel and give talks and do research and sit around and think and see patients and talk to them, and it's really kind of amazing. So it's wonderful that I can make a living doing this type of work, which is problem solving at a basic level, but creative problem solving. So embedding that artist's mentality or that creativity in as early as possible, I think, is very important. And it's great if you can find a job that you can make a living at in that process, but it's not critical, because someone your age, you're going to have 5 jobs at least throughout your life. It's not going to be going and working at the factory or anything like that for 20 years and then retiring. You're going to have several jobs over the course of your career and be very flexible. So applying that creativity to those successive jobs is going to be very important. My wife doesn't want to hear this, but I think I'm going to have one more career after this. So I'm not quite sure what it is, but I might have enough of this neuroscience thing in about 10 more years, and then I might want to do something else and creatively problem solve in a different domain. Life is short, and I want to get as much out of it as I can.
Well, and isn't it great that we live in a world now where you will have the opportunity to have those other options, and we have this model that we were talking about this in an earlier session. The education curriculum based around get a diploma to get a job, to get a job to earn a living, rather than is your life your creative pursuit? And are we modeling that in our classrooms? Are we modeling the fact that I love what I do? I can't imagine doing anything else. And as soon as that happens, that I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to find that thing where it does. Because it's that passion, it's that interior life that I have that keeps me waking up every morning being excited about what I'm going to do. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, there's, gosh, being, dancing professionally for 15 years, I think the most money I ever earned was $27,000 a year. But I can't, dancing in a professional company and the touring that we were doing and what we were doing and how we were doing it, 1 year of that was like 3 years than anybody else that I ever talked to. Because, it was so exciting, it was so jam-packed, there was so much that was going on, and I felt so creative, alive all the time.
You wouldn't trade it for anything.
No.
Yeah.
And you have to know when you get to that place in your life and you say, wow, I have a degree, I'm making a good living, but I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And to have the guts to say, okay, I'm going to go another direction. And to create something that makes you happy. Yeah. And exciting, that you're contributing.
Yeah, and I don't, to answer your question, I don't know that gets talked about a lot because, at the end, you have to have a job. You do have to make some money and earn a living. So I don't want to de-emphasize that. And your job can be separate from your avocation, which can be creative too. I'm starting to look ahead. We made apple cider this last year, and we have a little orchard up at our cabin, and we pressed apples, and we made apple cider for the first year because I wanted to grow grapes, and the grapes all died up at that elevation, but I still have this aspiration to be like a winemaker, 20 years from now. I think it would be great to be a winemaker in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So this might be my 3rd career. You've heard it here first. But so I'm going to plant like 20 grape plants and cultivate them over the next 20 years.
That is optimistic.
Yeah. It's a long-term plan. But it's another creative endeavor. It's a problem-solving activity, but to get something that you've grown, something that tastes good, that other people would actually like, it's a different type of creative endeavor, but it's something that I aspire to. But having that creative thing that you can apply to different things. So that's going to be my avocation now. Maybe 10 years from now, I can make it into my work. Who knows?
And if you have a set plan of thinking, this is what I have to do and this is what my life is going to be. The only times in my life, quite honestly, that I've been miserable is when I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. As opposed to, you can imagine the look on my father's face when I said, Dad, I want to quit school so I can go study dance. Son, do we need to have a discussion? There were so many questions that, but fortunately I had an older brother who was exactly like my father. They were both engineers, and I was the youngest kid, and he went, okay, good luck. And later in his life, I can say that he looked at me and he said, you had such an adventure in your life. And he said, I can't imagine you having gone any other pathway. So again, something that's prescribed is never going to be as exciting as what you're going to make of your own life. And I think, you know, and I think we all can agree that's what educationally we should be providing in our classrooms. You know? Thoughts? What? Yes?
We were talking about cross-curricular. I don't know exactly how we wanted to phrase the question. We were just going to talk to myself. So, okay, there you go. I'm an visual art teacher, so I deal with creativity every day. That's what we do, and that's the focus of my class. But like I work with the math department, I work with all the other departments at my school to try to foster creativity or getting them to think in a creative way with their separate disciplines. What would be your advice or viewpoint of how do I get them to be creative? You know, like how do I get them to be creative in their classes with their students? Because it's one thing if they just come to my class and do it, but if they get it all day long in 8 periods, you know, over 2 days in an AD schedule, that's far more, you know, it'll be more enriching for the student.
Preparation, incubation, illumination, verification. So it's a process. It's not, so you said something at the beginning. I'm an artist, or, you know, I teach art, so I deal with creativity every day. Why can't you get the math teacher to say that? I'm a math teacher, and so I deal with creativity every day.
Well, I think sometimes they say it in different ways, and that's what I'm trying to talk to them about.
Yeah.
Is I talk about it problem solving, which is very easy for math teachers to understand.
Yeah.
You know, and I just say, you know, like, how can you do that to where it's engaging to the students, you know, to where creativity, that it's not just...
It's not just art, yeah. So I think broadening out the problem, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, broadening it out. So it's a process, it's a thought process, and so you see it at its most elemental in the visual arts or artists and stuff like that, but you can see it in math class, you can see it in English class, you can see it in social studies, you can see it in all of these different classes, and reminding people of that process and not the content of the creative aspect, I think, is really important. You have the content that's tightly linked to the process, but delinking that process from the content and taking it to these other places as a gift, I think, is extraordinarily important. You have the gift that keeps on giving, and it can be applied to any of these classes.
And when working with some of the other faculty people, of saying, what kind of, you know, you're working on these things right now. You're working on fractals, okay? I can incorporate into my visual arts class. Yeah. You're working on, you know, how do we do this and make it fun so that they see what that interaction is? And, you know, I was fortunate when I worked in the high school idiom that we had a smaller faculty, and when we first started thinking about these ideas of working together, it seemed like, oh, that's another thing I have to add to my, you know. But then we carved out, we said, what can we do? What little bits of time can we make for ourselves that we're going to say, we're going to meet for half an hour. And we're going to sit down, we're going to have a cup of coffee, and we're going to talk, you know. We came up with 2 ideas. Cool. We did those. And the students were going, oh, that's pretty cool. Then all of a sudden, that turned us on. It was like, well, let's try some more things. And then the next thing we knew, there were other people going, hey, can I get in on this? And then once all of a sudden that culture starts to change around there, and the faculty really feels like they're turned on because there is some exchange. And then all of a sudden you've got your administrators who are going, what are you guys doing?
What's this creativity club?
Yeah, you know, exactly. And then all of a sudden it becomes self-reinforcing. So but you have to take it on. But if you take it on from a standpoint of, it's one more thing I have to add to my day, as opposed to, oh, what would be fun for me? It has to be that. And that for the students then too as well, that you're saying, you know, that it is process. You're going, that's all it is process. Our mind is a process, it's not a place. You know, one of the ways that I came up of describing this is that you never exist quite so fully as when you are not thinking. However, you don't learn to stand in existence or you learn to stand in existence by the quality of your thinking. So it goes back and forth. You have to say, how do I create those moments where I'm arrested in this moment of just being? And then, okay, how do I cultivate my process of thinking so that I can recognize where do I need to be in the world more fully? It's both. And that's what happens, especially in the visual arts or any type of art setting. But more importantly, then how do you take that into the rest of the curriculum? Yeah. What other thoughts? Are we winding down? Doris, do you want to, should we talk about the filling out our assessment?
Yes.
Oh, do we get assessed?
Yes, we will be assessed.
Do we get evaluated?
Are there any other questions? Any thoughts? Anything else? I know it's been a long day. Yeah. Ladies first.
I just had a question. In the very beginning, talking about that creativity was novel and useful. And I just wondered, this thought has been playing around in my mind. Is creativity relative to what is valued in society, or is it relative to what's valued in the classroom?
Certainly. So that's an excellent question. There's a third part to that definition that I often add, and particularly when I write research papers: novel, useful, and socially relevant. So there always is a other that is out there that is viewing the creativity. In some of my talks, I talk about Van Gogh and how it was novel, it was useful, but it was useful and socially relevant only to his brother at that time. No one else cared about Van Gogh's paintings during his lifetime. They thought it was just scribbles. It was horrible. Now everyone would die to own a Van Gogh, or to kill to own a Van Gogh. It is an iconic example of Impressionism. So, I mean, there is a social context within which the creative product resides that is extraordinarily important. That's the judgment that comes in from the other, the outside, and there's a lot of evolutionary talk that goes into this about how it's a blind variation of ideas that are put out into the world, selective retention of the good ideas that are retained, while you are the selective retainer in the culture within which that idea emerges. So that is the three-part definition that I like the best, one that's novel, useful, and socially relevant.
And that you can also then look at that from the perspective of, if it's just one of those things, if it's just novel, well, okay, and maybe a nice new toy. Yeah. And also, when we're talking about the psychopathology and regarding the, somebody who's really working out there on the fringe, socially people might not grasp it yet. Yes. I mean, when Stravinsky first, was writing some of his music, people went, it was, but then orally as a society we caught up and went, wow, and it changed music. Yeah. So you have to determine, when Martha Graham made the choice, I mean, early in her career, she could have had a fabulous career, made a lot of money on Broadway. Yeah. And she said, you know what, that's not going to serve me. I'm going to go do and start making these dances. And people looked at them early on and went, Martha, that's ugly and that's stupid. And there were a few people that went, you keep going, because there's something
this is good
here.
Stuff, yeah.
And she kept mining and cultivating that stuff, and the things that, now she's looked at as an iconic figure. Well, iconic figures they're not born that way. And again, so it's that
society is dragged along kicking and screaming oftentimes.
So it's bringing in those aspects that it literally is that three-legged stool that brings that forward, that makes it meaningful and useful. Christian?
My question relates to, in the speech that you gave in the beginning, you said that in the frontal lobe there's less connectivity, and that correlates to more creativity.
Yeah, the white matter was lower in terms of what we measure as integrity. And I was alerted to the fact, I mean, these are healthy college students, so it might not be less connectivity, it might actually be more connectivity. The way we measure connectivity is a bit complex, and I didn't get into the details of this measured diffusion tensor imaging. So but I am now, but very briefly, we may be measuring, so it measures water going in lots of different directions. And when you see water going in a coherent direction, it's saying that this is an intact axon. The water is going down this wire in a very coherent way. So when we see water going in lots of different directions, we interpret that as a leak in the wire, that the water is leaking across the wire. That's what we usually see in damaged axons. Now there's a different way to interpret this, that instead of one big pipeline, one big highway, there's lots of different wires going in all different directions. So in these healthy young people, we might see lots of little, what I call byways and dirt roads going in lots of different directions throughout the frontal lobe, which would look like the water is going in lots of different directions, lots of little streams connecting up different parts of the brain, as opposed to a lack of integrity. So that's a slightly subtle difference in interpretation. So it's not damage, but it's perhaps not one big superhighway connecting A to B, but lots of different roads connecting ideas together in novel and useful ways.
Just a follow-up question. Do you know what causes that, or not yet?
Your genes and your environment. So in some combination. We don't know, but it's probably, best estimates, 50-50 split between genes and environment. Your parents caused it, and then your parents caused it some more by providing an environment for you to live in. So mostly, and genes only work within a given environment. They're turned on and off within a given environment, so lots of environmental influences.
Which can also be changed and altered and developed. And so one of the best reasons to dance, or to sing, or to draw, or to try and write poetry, is that it enhances that experience that's personal into, that's why I'm such a big advocate regarding the dance realm in regards to education, is because you are then educating the whole body. Because the more sensory aware you are, the more you can define where you stand in the moment, which then that affords you the ability to be a choice. They say that in early education, what they call executive functions, inhibitory control, working memory, and cognitive flexibility are the three, those are executive functions. The ability that you're not just going to spit out your first answer, that you're going to learn to play well with others, that you're going to take your turn, that you have a working memory. You can fix things in a sequence at a time. You can recall your experiences. You can recall what the thing was before. And that, finally, you think cognitively with flexibility, so that you can take all of those things and you can put them. If elementary school kids learn that, they're going to be successful the rest of their learning environment, because those are the skills. It has nothing to do with what the intelligence quotient is, but rather those skill base will turn on what that personal intelligence is, which will then draw, and then if we create opportunities of creativity, that manifests in something that's going to be productive and positive in a powerful way.
So on a final note, with this notion of neuroplasticity, you can change your mind to change your brain, but you have to change your mind in a deliberate way, in a consistent way. You have to do that mind-changing thing over and over and over, and your brain will follow structurally.
And a practical thing with this, a good friend of mine that I grew up with is, I just saw over the break, and he's a recovering alcoholic. And his wife is an educator. She works with blind. And we were discussing some of these concepts, and suddenly, my friend said, this is the main tenet of AA. That's one of the things that we say in AA is that all of your thinking has gotten you to this place, but you can't think yourself into a new way of acting. You can act yourself into a new way of thinking. And he said that's why an alcoholic will say, it's been, I am recovering to this point because my next choice can alter my behavior. And so the behavior that I'm making now, that's what's going to allow me to think in this productive, positive way or not.